Morning, everybody. We'll get started here in just a second. Just going to ask you guys, when this thing's over, if we can hang out about 30 minutes after it ends, and we'll meet with you guys in there to go over the protocols and guidelines for this camp. And without further ado, Mr. Jones.
I put these on so that I could take them off because there's no sun. Hey, can you believe this weather out here? And the first thing that Coach and I talked about this morning was it's just hard to remember how good this weather is out here. And we, of course, are glad to be back. Can't believe we've been coming out here as many years as we have. But all you've got to do is hit this place and under these circumstances and realize that what a great place this is to have camp. We appreciate what Oxnard, of course, is as far as their can-do spirit and what this camp means to them and our Cowboy fans that are here in Oxnard. And so it's great to be here. We always appreciate all of not only the weather, but of course the people, because they're great fans out here. I want to start off by saying that a great friend to all of us, we lost recently, and Ted, and I want to say that that is a loss for all of us, particularly missed when you come to camp and realize how much part of everything he was as the engineer to make everything work for all of us for what we do here with our media presentation back to our fans. But what's really worth noting, because we mentioned Ted when we were thinking about our meeting today with you, and we just really remember the people that have been a part of this camp that we lost just this past year. Players, Marion Barber, Conley, Neely, Perkins, Reeves, Rayfield Wright. Those are familiar names. A lot of you even have a little more familiarity with them than others. Coach Gary Brown, and then really particularly a real loss on a personal basis. And I'm glad she made every camp always. Marilyn Love is not here, and y'all didn't see her as closely as I did, but a lot of you did. And miss her, Janet Scott, and of course we lost Lace. And Stephen and I went over to Jonesboro and were a part of a lot of our staff, certainly our scouts, Jonesboro, Arkansas, when they gave a big memorial to Lace. And Lace held court out here, and I've always, I'm going to get me somebody about a midget to stand up there with me and dress him up like Lace and think Lace is still out here helping us look at the practice with us. But, we all need our props and a little memory that goes with it. But here is to Lace, really, and I'm serious about that. Again, it's great to be here. It seems like with the COVID thing a year ago, and then here it just has seemed longer than it has been to be here. We've had quite an off season. We've had things that were directly involved with as football as you can be with players. We've had speculation. It's for me. I was quickly reminded that we won 12 football games. We obviously didn't get to the result, having won those games, that we wanted to have when we got to the playoffs. But still, it has been an off season full of a varied type issues. But one of the ones I want to address directly, because I guess it's the one that probably the one that I have the most sensitivity about, and that is Mike and him coaching. And I want to be real clear. He wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't think he was the man to lead this team to a Super Bowl. He would not be, and I have choices. And so that's not meant to be insensitive to anybody. That's a fact. And so you guys write about a lot of those choices, and they were there for my use had I wanted them. And no, the guy to my right is who I'm convicted about, have been, We certainly have had things we've addressed, and the way we've addressed them in the off-season. I think have successfully put together a staff that really, from this vantage point, gives us absolutely the best chance with our makeup and our team to get to the ultimate success. So I want to be real clear about that. We've lost some key players. Those were totally our decision to make those. They weren't they were influenced. Here's what has happened. We've lost 3 really high-profile players. Those players were in the top 10 of our players that make the most money. When you get in that spot, I can tell you, your standards go up. Your bar is higher. Your conduct is higher. Your attention to the team is higher, not just your own performance, but everything. When you have that kind of responsibility, which you do when you have that much of the financial pie. So what I'm trying to say is those decisions were made more about availability than ability. And they were made as to how you arrived at not being unavailable at times. And so let me be real clear. We're in a sport, we're in football, where certainly your skill level and your ability to be a player is why you're even being considered as a player. But more important than anything, these decisions that I made, relative to top players not being here, had everything to do with their availability and my concern about their availability. For instance, you could have the exact same player, and if you were paying him one thing, about 10 or 15% of what you're looking at paying him, then you can do that all day long, and you can have half-ass availability when you're paying them about 10 or 15%. The day you're called upon to raise that up about 10 times, then all of a sudden you start questioning whether or not availability should be more in the mix, because those are resources, those dollars he's going to get that can help us win the games with other players. And that is a big thing, and that has everything to do with the decisions we made in free agency this year and putting this team together. Everything with the people involved. Availability had everything to do with it. I'm not trying to talk in pig Latin. I'm trying to be straight. I don't want to demean any player. I love those players, personally. But you have to have number one thing is how we win a football game if you're going to be in the top 10 of paid players, in my mind, for the team. Check I at the door. It's we when you go through the door. Let's see here.
That's good.
Okay, the rest of this, I just want to be sure I hadn't missed my choice of remarks. I haven't talked to y'all in a long time. I've got some stuff stored up here. But seriously, it is great to be here. It's I lit up like a Christmas tree when I left Texas yesterday to land out here, and I didn't even feel it until I felt it last night when we got here. That's how good it's going to be, and it's great to be with you, those that I've never been here without seeing your face. I'm looking at a couple of them right here. It's great to see you. It's great to be here and getting a chance to compete for this thing as we look forward to the coming year. Now, I'd like to, with no ado at all, just have Mike and have him take over from here and answer your questions and make his remarks. Mike?
Okay. Questions, please. I guess I'm supposed to, is this where I'm supposed to make a statement?
Your call. Your call.
Hey, it's great to see all y'all again. I'll say this, coming in here yesterday, I mean, the drive up the coast, and, we talk about the weather, but the environment, year two, I know last year when I came here, I think just like anything, the year one is always, there's some angst and uncertainty, and I thought we had an excellent camp last year, and it was I thought it was tremendous on the way we used it as a platform coming out of camp, and I think it definitely showed up in our production of September football and our successful September football start to the season. So just visiting with Jerry again this morning, it is so obvious, what a great environment to train in. And I think clearly we'll be better, in everything that we do just from a function standpoint. I mean, the really only comparable I have for a football team that I can really tie to is last year's sequence of getting ready for the season. And I think our players have done an excellent job coming out of the offseason, and they're 5 weeks, off, getting ready. You got the mobility workout going on as we speak. We had the physicals this morning. The information's starting to come in. So we're just very excited about where our starting line is this year compared to last year. So we have an excellent group. We're definitely more experienced in some areas. We have youth that you always have to bring together with your veterans, and I thought our rookie class really knocked it out of the park in the offseason of connecting with our veterans and so forth. So just very excited to get going and having a great camp, and also excited about some of the new things we got schedule-wise. And what I'm referring to is practicing at Denver, practicing against the Chargers. So it's definitely going to have a different feel to it. It definitely have some different challenges, but it's great to be here.
Mike, what's the significance to you of what Jerry said, the subject you brought up, the very first, your future here, and the commitment that he made to you right there with those remarks?
I think really, Jerry's comments are just really in line with our conversations. I obviously have the opportunity to meet with Jerry in the GM, the head coach realm, and our conversations are about partnership, direction, vision, and making those things. But also, I do have the opportunity to speak to Jerry, as the owner and to the head coach, and that's really a vast education of so many different things on how the things that we could do better, from a big realm to make us better. So I think it just really is in line with our conversations. So. And that's really where my focus has always been, is on this partnership. And at the end of the day, we're here to win a championship. And everything I do, I know every single day when I get up. In my younger days as a head coach, I would get, my whole thought process, how am I going to win today? But I think the challenges that are from the media and all the other things, and it's a huge challenge to be a head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. It's a huge challenge to be a Dallas Cowboy. And I think now being more in tune with that, my daily focus is what affects winning. And that's really where I put my energy and my time into it. You understand the negatives, the narratives it's part of the job. And that's about as far as it goes with me.
Coach, I know you've told us multiple times you don't concern yourselves with the narratives, but I think what Ed was getting at there, is your hope now that we move off that narrative and we can just focus on this football team versus, as you alluded to, Jerry, the other choices that were out there?
Well, I'll say this, I think it's great to see media camaraderie. You're taking up for Ed. That's a first. So, and I guess just when you think you're seeing it all, there you go. So, I think really, I want to focus on football. Part of the job of coaching in this business is there are things out there, and really your family has to deal with it. But other than that, I think even more so ever in this league, because when I look at my head coaching career, since 2006, every single change that occurs in how you train your football team is you got to do it with less time. So whether it's the CBA in 2011, then the last CBA, so the time efficiency and workload capacity is such a key focus for me, and no different than my media responsibilities. I get where you have to ask the questions and the respect that goes with that both ways, but that's really about as far as it goes with me. If I'm going to demand it from the coaches and the players and support staff to keep the focus tight and just keep focused on things that have to do with winning, then obviously I got to do that myself.
Coach, you mentioned the rookies hit it out of the park. Talk about the confidence of Micah Parsons as it increased upon getting more responsibility last year.
Yeah, definitely. I think Micah is, he is a second-year player, and what you look for from the rookie class going into the second year, we talk about it all the time, and it's taking that second-year jump. And when you see Micah, when you get to see him tomorrow, he's lost a little weight. He's had a really good off season. Obviously year two and how people look at him and how they'll have to game plan against him. We've had a whole year to implement the schemes around that and make sure we're giving him the opportunities he needs. But I would definitely put Micah, leading up to this point, he's definitely put himself in a position to take a big second-year jump. And that may not show up statistically, but it's really his impact definitely will be a big part of our defensive success.
Jerry, you referenced in your statements earlier the offseason a couple of times. From a personal standpoint, this past year with the losses you had with those close to you and some other family issues, has this been the most challenging personal time during your ownership? And how does that juxtapose with what you were doing off the field to try to get this team better going into this season?
No, first of all, let me say, being with the Cowboys for 33 years, the bumps just don't feel that big. It's almost like you feel like Herschel Walker running and they're just bouncing off. There's so much more that's important when any one issue hits you. Now, you do get a lot of issues of varied things, personal, business, and of course football, and the way we operate wide open, we operate on the edge, we do, and I know that. And so when these things come, by the way, more often than not, if you have something that is perceived as disappointing, get ready, it's coming. And it won't just come from the football standpoint, it'll come from other areas. That's the visibility associated with the Dallas Cowboys, whether it be personal or whether it can even be business. It just goes with the territory, kind of like Mike's talking about here. But the pluses to get to be involved today, and that plus side of it kind of is a buffer, if you will, so to speak. This particular off season, we've had varied things come up, both from the standpoint of league as well as from the club, and those have their own narratives. They have their own issues involved in them, and they're varied. And I've got my fingers in a lot of things. And so you're likely to have some of them be criticized or reported on or opinionated on, so to speak. And so that's life. And but the thing that you want to do is take. Let me back up. The thing that that I had before the Cowboys prepared me a lot for the type of criticism that we have now, and the ambiguity and the risk-taking. I was actually as prepared by being in the types of things, business I was in. And being with the Cowboys and the NFL and all of the convoluted ways that you are experienced there prepares you to handle things away from the Cowboys. And so none of them get too big. Now, Maryland was a setback. That's tough. Is a little different than talking about a lot of the things that we're interested in here, as you well know, and you've all, I'm sure, experienced personal issues. But Maryland was vital. This first training camp I've ever been to that Maryland wasn't doing my stuff out here at the time, and balancing a lot of areas. So, again, the off season has not been trying. It's been, for me, with resolve. And that's why I opened up with the talk about how the changes that we have made relative to some key players. And the resolve we need, I felt personally, and it's consensus. I think Stephen feels that way too. that we could do some doctoring up in areas of just how important is it to people? How important is it to us? Because we put a lot out there for the fans and a lot for the Dallas Cowboys out there. And we're not screwing around. And so we need to do some things, everything we can possibly do to win the football game and make the first downs. And so it all kind of goes back there, as misplaced as it might be. That's where it goes back on a personal basis with me.
Jerry, you spoke about wanting Mike McCarthy here. Did that come with a contract extension for him at all?
Excuse me?
You spoke about wanting Mike McCarthy to be here as your head coach and your confidence in him. Did that result in a contract extension for Mike?
It has not.
Because
Any other
Appreciate
questions?
you pushing
Any
for
other
it.
questions? Any other questions?
that's the way to show confidence, right?
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I don't get contract extensions. You know, when you got your ass out there a little bit, you can. No, don't want to at Mike's expense or our expense here, but no, we're in good shape. We have years left on our contract. As far as my answer to that question.
What does that mean, years left on the contract? Are there years past this one?
Well, don't you know the terms? Have we never gone public with the terms of the contract? But there are years past this one, and that's all I'll say.
Mike said he's here to win the championship. You talked about commitment and resolve to win, and obviously the biggest goal is to win the championship. Have you guys done enough this offseason to win a championship this year? Is the commitment there for what you've done in offseason to win a championship?
I thought we had a team put together last year that was healthy enough when we got to the playoffs, which is always my fear, is how healthy we're going to be in the playoffs. I thought we had a team put together. I knew we were going to have adjustments to this team coming into this year. You always do. But I knew we had a couple of our best shots out there financially last year. And so before we even started the season last year, I knew we were going to be making some adjustments with our players this year. We had it teed up pretty good. And in my mind, we made a hell of a run at it. We got disappointed, but we made a big run at it. I think we're in better shape today to make a run at it than when we were sitting here this time last year. And I say that following what I said right before that. I thought last year we had a chance to make a heck of a run at it, and had people in place that if we were healthy enough, we might get them. And I think we're in better shape.
Based on
Why do you think you're in better shape?
First of all, this guy's sitting right here with what we know that we didn't know this time last year. Not me about him, but about our team, what we know about our team. But I will say it one more time. This guy's sitting right here. The staff he's got. I like this staff. And I frankly like the makeup of the players 1 year later that were on this team last year. And I like the new players that we brought on. You say it's hard to count on a rookie. A rookie has a trouble making that kind of impact. We're fresh off seeing one make a hell of an impact in Micah. So I know it can happen. Does that happen often? No. But can you get a player or players that can come in and be real impactful, not just come in and play well, but be impactful? That's possible. We got a couple of shots at that.
it seems like more is based on projections and possibilities than known factors. Is that accurate?
It's always projections. It's always the day that the veteran players are they tailing off? The rookie players, are they coming? It's always measuring. Sitting right here, we're almost 2.5 college seasons away from being in the playoffs. Okay? We've got about 20 games to go before we get to the playoffs. You'll have some veteran players not be what they were. by the time you get to the playoff. You'll have some young players become better than they were. It's always measuring how they're going to get there. Really, only God knows that for sure. But our assessment of that and how we bet on that relative to what we spend to get there, since that is limited and a part of the game, that's the game. And you start making that when we started last year, when we decided to extend or we decided not to extend players.
Mike, Zach Martin said yesterday that this is a chance to create your identity out here, begin that process. He would like to see a team that's tough physically and more disciplined than you guys were last year, when obviously you led the league in penalties. In that regard, how much are you in agreement with that, creating that identity, and how do you go about doing it specifically?
Well, I mean, every year you set out to recreate who you are as a football team, because the reality is you don't get to carry over things from last year. So, but you obviously have that experience of last year. But our team identity is disciplined, grit, and fundamentally sound. So, as we build that each and every year, we definitely need to be better in the area of penalties. We're going to focus on that. And the one thing about the penalties, it really falls under the category, when you talk about team identity, is in the category of discipline. At the end of the day, when you're trying to establish a play style, which, I felt like we hit the target last year. We were up and down in year one with our play style. But when you approach your play style, we're not trying to be disciplined and then play just hard enough. We come from another, we want an aggressive, physical play style, and we cross the line too much. So our discipline is pulling back. This is not a group that I have to push forward. And that's very important in how you train in the reality of the mistakes that are made and how we need to, tighten it down. So our play style and the way we attacked the season last year, that's what it looks like. But the discipline in that, we need to be better. We've identified with that. We've addressed it, and it has to be part of our daily function. But I do not want to lose the play style that we've established. So that's the goal. So we're going to aggressively cross that line, but we do need to be much more disciplined in pulling it back, because particularly the pre-snap penalties, that's the one that we need to eliminate and definitely cut that way back, because that's there's no need for that. But if you look at the our operation at the line of scrimmage and just the things that we did in the offseason program, I thought Kellen, the offensive coaches, Dak, and the quarterbacks in the center, the extra time that we made, we need to be much better there, and that's the reality of it.
How much of that is about coaching and players understanding what they need to do?
Well, it's all about the connection. I mean, the physical part. Each and every year you have the opportunity through player acquisition to build a 90-man roster, and I think Jerry's already hit on this, where the way that roster comes together, you always have some level of projection and anticipation. So we have a really good blend of veterans and rookies, but we need to really stay after that and connect, because this is more about the emotional connection and the process towards productivity on a daily basis. Our guys know what's expected from them mentally. We've been able to get all 8 installs in through the off-season program. We had tremendous, I think we were 97% of all the workouts that were available for our whole roster. We're as a target, I would challenge that against anybody's off-season program. So our players have put the extra time in to get themselves ready physically and mentally for this opportunity, because this opportunity is about the emotional connection, the productivity, the ability to play with play style. You don't get to put pads on until next week, so our window to get real football is very tight, and that's just the reality of how we go about this. So it's a process. The penalty was too high last year, and it needs to be an experience that we need to learn from.
You guys, the Dallas police have said that Kelvin Joseph won't face any charges. Can you talk about how he responded this offseason after that episode and what he did, and what do you expect from him in this camp? What do you want to see from him?
You ask.
Who are you talking
He
to?
asked Mike.
Mike.
Oh, I thought you said Jerry. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I usually don't get 3 in a row up here. This is a Jerry's press conference. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was for you. Kelvin, I thought Kelvin, obviously after this, being involved in that situation, showed humility to his teammates. We had this, the internal discussions and so forth, but he was a full participant in the off-season program, and I think he's put forth the energy and the focus that he needs to moving forward.
Any word?
The league leaders with the most salary cap space left. Why would you say that is, and what is kind of the plan going forward there?
Well, I think, one of the things when you talk about how are you going to get better, as Jerry mentioned, availability, consistency. I mean, it's time to give some of our young players like a CeeDee Lamb, like a Steele and a Tyler Smith and a Willetsko and a Ball, the opportunity to step up. I mean, that's what you look for in these players. Same thing, in the defensive line. You get a draft of Sam Williams, you got a Fowler, you got a Dorrance Armstrong, which may have been hard to keep. I mean, we have a good young roster over the last 2 or 3 or 4 drafts, that are going to be coming up and that we're going to want to keep around here because we do like our foundation, our young foundation. And so I just think it's time for these players to get the opportunity to step up. And when they do step up, of course, they're going to want paid too. But who's to say where we are with how this roster is going to look like when we get 8 games into the season, when we get to the end of the year. I mean, we'll continue to look for ways to improve our roster and make this team better. So we feel really good about our young group. And as you said, Clarence, projections, maybe you can say they're projections. We've got a lot of resources tied up, whether it's draft collateral or, what we think of these young players, and really feel like at the end of the day that they're ready to take the next step, just like we had confidence in Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick when they walked in the door, and we plugged them in and they played well. And some of these guys just need the opportunity to get more chances. I mean, Michael Gallup, he's coming off his injury, but he's a guy who you'd like to see get more chances to get balls. And I'm just looking forward to see what this camp brings for our young group. We certainly do have some dry powder if we need to use it. I've always said about cap space, it's where you've massaged it to that point. I mean, you can create cap space. You cannot have cap space if you want to have it out there looking like that to where you can create it when you want to. But I do think we're sitting in a good spot, one, to see what these young players can do, but two, if we need to make improvements to this roster and there's opportunities to do that, then we'll look at it.
Jerry, now that Joseph has been cleared by Dallas police, any clarity from the NFL on his availability in their investigation into the personal conduct policy?
No. As far as you're asking me specifically, have they addressed that? No, not at all. And that's what that is. That's best for me to answer just with not necessarily.
Stephen, as a rule of thumb, how far into preseason might you go evaluating these young players with some of the veterans that are still out on the market before you say, you know what, maybe we should reinforce a little bit?
I don't think there's a definitive time, Brad. I think it's just, you're getting a feel for your team as we practice with Mike and his staff and our scouting staff. We'll monitor what we think's going on. We've been doing it for the whole offseason ever since the end of the draft. We've had our rookies in there, and as Mike said, he thinks they've done a tremendous job of doing things the right way. So obviously, we feel good about what we've seen up till now. But you don't play this game in shorts. You don't play this game in T-shirts. You play it in pads, and certainly, we're going to have an acclimation period here that's longer than others. So we're going to have to kind of hurry up and wait again once we get here. But it'll be something that we're monitoring. But I can tell you this: it's a good, educated projection, if you will, based on what we've seen. Obviously, we feel like we really did our homework in the draft. Really feel like we got a good draft class. Feel like what we did in free agency, we feel comfortable that we've helped this team. And not unlike Jerry, I feel great about our football team.
This is the first time you'll have a 3-game preseason. How will that impact the way you evaluate?
Oh, I think it's going to be impactful. Clearly, I think just not only the 3 games, but also practicing against 2 other teams. Will be part of that formula of how you get the veterans ready and in the opportunities of the young players. I mean, we're going to have our young players going to play a lot of football in these preseason games, especially the first two. So, yeah, it's definitely a different formula when it comes down to play time and opportunity, and it's a challenge. I mean, that's a big part of coaching in today's league. I mean, you think about your first 10 practices at training camp. I mean, you go back to the 90s. I mean, 40% of your first 10 practices are in helmets, in shirts, and 2 in shells. So, I mean, that is all part of the challenge of, assessing the talent, getting the younger guys and the older guys to blend together, because, it doesn't matter how long you do this. When the offensive guard and the tackle come off in a combination block, it just doesn't happen the first time you put on pads. You need the reps, you need the footwork, you need those padded practices to get the pad level and all the particulars in order. So, because you look at our first week, it's going to be, ramp up. Second week is a huge week for us because it's our padded work together, and then, by week 3 we're heading up to Denver. So, it's the window's tighter, but we're as good as the platform and the foundation we built. And you look at last year, I mean, our defensive rookies made strong contributions in the first 4-5 weeks of the season. You go back and look at the play time of our rookie class on defense, there's a probability that may be the same on offense this year. So my particular experience in this, I coach as a head coach over a decade where, veteran free agency wasn't really part of the everyday formula. So you always have had to count on our young players. Our young players will impact our success early in the season. That's what history tells you, and that's really the way we're approaching it.
Jerry, how have you gone about communicating your sense of urgency for this season to your organization, especially to your coaching staff?
Told them I got a birthday coming up here real quick. I don't have time to have a bad time. It ain't on my schedule. But no, I'm not so sure that's a joke. That's the way it is. But I think more is made of how you communicate. When I visit with the team more often than not, I point to our stadium, I point to our facilities, and I say, guys, if you think anybody's going to give you something for nothing around here, this doesn't happen, okay, for nothing. We mean business. We've got to have people who mean business. This takes a lot to put this show on. You need to do your part. That's about as it's time that if they're rookies that they're put that equation together if they hadn't already. Now, the fact they're sitting there drafted in some cases means they've put some of it together. They saw the importance of what a snap could mean for them. I like to use the term that if you stepped out there and knew that every snap was going to change your life, everybody you're going to love's life for the rest of your life, and people that you love today, if you will look at it that way, you might have more urgency with that snap at practice because it could mean that for you and your family. And so to me, that's how I would go about it, but that's not different than it has been.
Jerry, you said you feel better about the team now than you did a year ago today. What do you need to see from Dak this year to achieve that potential?
Well, I don't want to see him throw a ball halfway the length of the field and strain something out here the third day. And so that would start. That's for starters right there. And I don't think we'll see that. And that's just Dak. And but no, one of the things that make me say that the most is that Dak does have last year behind him, and he's got several years behind him now. And I feel like we have one of the best people at that position and one of the best people that a team has in the NFL. He's a big part of my optimism.
Jerry and Stephen, when you look back, I think it's been 15 years since this team has gone to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. when you look back on what you haven't been able to do, is that a big part of it? Not, living in the moment, doing 2 or 3 years of putting yourself in the playoffs to kind of get some traction? And do you feel you're better suited to do that this season than you've been in a while?
My curse is that I don't spend a lot of time on my mess ups or the what didn't go right. I hang on, I really do. This isn't a pep talk, you're getting here, but I really do go to the successes. And I go right past. You say, well, you learn from how you might have done it differently that got you there, but hopefully there's some of that. But really, I don't spend a lot of time. I started to get some games and some seasons and some stats together for visiting with you today a little bit, and I decided against it over the last several years. But I don't look at that. Today is today, and this season is this season. We're here, and some of us aren't here, and so that motivates me to live in the day. And so we're going to give it everything we've got. We're giving it everything we got. If we could have spent everything we have available in the cap, and we could have spent it and mortgaged some more, if I thought it was the best way to win this year or win in the immediate future, then we would have done it. If your logic shows you that. And I have done it. And anybody here that realize that I'm a risk taker, and I'll take them with the best of them. And so my point is, what you see is the best I got here. And what you see with what we've got available to us in our cap, that's the best spot to be in my mind, and I'm a risk taker. So we've got a little dry powder. That's not necessarily for this season. That cap room is available for future as well. We all know that. And so, you sum all of that up, and you got our best shot. What you're seeing right here today as we go. Tomorrow is another day, and we not that have anything in mind, but that I do believe in changing your mind and would in a second if it'll help our team.
Stephen, when we look at Ezekiel Elliott's contract, there's a little bit more position flex after this season. I know he was dealing with the PCL injury last year that he was aggravating, but when you think about Zeke, how important is this season for him?
Well, I think every season's important to every player. I mean, that goes without saying. And, no one competes like Zeke, in my mind. I mean, that's one of his top of the list of his redeeming qualities. And, there's a lot of players, you see around the league that, if things aren't just right, then they'll sit down. That's not Zeke. He wants to be out there for his team, his teammates. And I admire the hell out of that and what 21's all about there. So one thing's for sure, we're going to get 21's best effort week in and week out. And he's a great football player. And, his physical style obviously lends to him getting some bumps along the way. This is a very physical, don't have to tell you how physical this game is. And no one thinks more Zeke Elliott than this organization.
Stephen, with Dalton Schultz, why was it the franchise tag the best route to go with him?
We tried. I mean, it wasn't that we weren't necessarily talking about a long-term deal. It just gets into the, not unlike DeMarcus Lawrence, who's ended up being a stalwart here, a foundation player for us, not unlike Dak Prescott. We know what we think of him. Sometimes it's just, when you're getting your hands around what this team's not only going to look like this year, but look like in the future, then, you have to kind of play that hand that way and certainly understand where Dalton's coming from. I mean, he represents everything we want in a Dallas Cowboy on and off the field. Jerry talks about being available. Dalton's available. Game in, game out, week in, week out. He's an available player who plays at a high level. And so it's not that we didn't want him on a long-term deal. It's just, getting to the right answer on that. And I think we ultimately will. I think Dalton's going to be a long-term Cowboy here. It just didn't work out to get the long-term part of that figured out this time around.
Jerry, you pointed out that you focus on successes more than failures. with all due respect, what successes are you focusing on that over the last 20 years that say you guys are going down the right path?
And again, I appreciate your tenderness.
With all due respect.
I felt like that we've done some things that got us a lot closer than those zeros in that championship game column show. I think we legitimately had 3 or 4 shots that we could have had another one. And the things that we did to get to where I could say that, in other words, those teams that had us close enough to think, but for a play, a ruling on a catch, those type of things, that you might have had you another Super Bowl or you might have had you another playoff, that sustains me. Because I know it wasn't just the one play. It might have been symptomatic. It's what you are, as a good friend of ours said, but it's not symptomatic. I can have the luxury of, from within, being able to really analyze the deals that I didn't do or that we didn't do that we could have done. You don't see that. You don't know how close it was or how far away it was with a negotiation, for instance. So I do. I know. And I know when maybe it's not even recognizable to the public of what we could have done and didn't do it and might have made a difference. So I know all of that. And so I can live with the fact that we have been closer than the zeros we have in line here over these last years you're talking about. That sustains me. That's food for me. And so that keeps me going. That's not a loser you're talking to, although it sounds like it. What it is someone that wants to go again and feels like that we've got the tools to win it. And when I look around at the teams that have been involved in the Super Bowls that I've been involved in, or the people that have been involved in the Super Bowls then I'm thankful for the Super Bowls that I've been involved in. I'm thankful for the record that we have had over the last years. We have a criticism this year. We won 12 games last year. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't get a little bit of feel good out of those 12 games. I understand where our fans are, and they should understand where I am. That's not enough. But it's enough to go again.
Jerry, with all that said, what would qualify as a successful season coming up?
Well, I need to win it. I need to win it. But I'll be candid with you. There's degrees. I want to be fair to everybody concerned. We need to be in the playoffs. We need to be viable in the playoffs to be a successful season.
Jerry, how can Dan Quinn coordinating this defense for the second year help get you there?
Say that again, please.
You said we need to be viable in the playoffs. How can Dan Quinn coordinating this defense for a second year help you reach that goal?
Oh, well, I think he did a great job last year. He works, his biggest reason he's here is sitting right to my right, by the way. And so build on that. A lot of building that can go on there. And these guys are imaginative. And they'll try it on. And they'll change it up on you, too. All of that I like. And so I know their relationship, which is everything here. And you can sense that, and the players sense that. They know where that confidence level, it's unique. I haven't seen that many times in my 33 years with the Cowboys, where everybody realizes how good they work together.
departures in the wide receiver room. How have you seen CeeDee Lamb grow, change?
I think the biggest thing with CD is, just like most young players, is he's given more opportunities just based off of, the position he's playing, whether it's the flanker position, the F position, his ability to line up in a 2x2 in a 1 slot, and a 3x1 in a 3 spot, in a, in a 1x3 in the 2 spot. So just the flexibility of opportunities, which obviously we're going to need as an offense because the way the defense will focus on him. So I think he's had a very nice, path to this point. If you look at his production last year, so he's definitely ready. And but he, when you talk about the flanker position in this offense, that is the premier #1 spot for our receiver group.
Tracking at this point.
I'm sorry?
Where do you stand from a physical standpoint? Will Gallup be on the club? Is Cox
We're still working through that. The information is still coming in from the training room, so but I don't know. We'll get that to you when it's completed.
Steve, when we look at the landscape of these quarterback deals that have come down lately, do you have to start looking at maybe extending out Dak and thinking about cap flexibility going forward?
Well, as you know, one of our biggest challenges was length, and obviously, it's going to be popping up again real quick because we went along with the shorter length. So you pay attention to these all the time, and certainly, we're always going to be thinking about Dak and how he affects us, and from a salary cap standpoint. But yes, I mean, he's always in the back of our mind when you're managing the salary cap with this football team. He's a big part of it, and obviously well deserved. I know, at the end of the day, he's a common theme, and why we're so optimistic about this team being very successful this year. It starts with number 4. So, he's always, a big part of our planning and what we're thinking about with him.
Contract year for Tony Pollard. The better he plays, his price is going to go up. You mentioned that earlier. How can you continue to maximize both him and Zeke on the field? Do you see a long-term future with both Zeke and Tony Pollard on the field?
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, with Mike's leadership, working with Kellen and the offensive staff, I think they do an outstanding job. You start talking about, maybe not having quite the depth in the receiving room. Obviously, Tony can make a big difference, getting the ball in his hand in the open field. And I know Mike and Kellen have come up, will continue to come up with great ways to use those two together. That's why we have them here, is to get creative with guys like Zeke and Tony. And certainly what we see and what happens this year on the field will play a big role in how we move forward.
Does that APY that you're seeing for quarterback contracts, people scoffed at Tony's back when it was like in the 25 million range, 40 with Dak. Does it motivate you to start thinking about that extension so you don't get into some of those messy numbers? For instance, Mahomes was a pretty good deal for Kansas City when you look back at it.
Well, I think anytime you have a franchise quarterback, and we're blessed to have one in Dak Prescott, then that's just the life you live. I mean, we lived it with Troy, we lived it with Tony, we're living it with Dak, and that's a good thing. I mean, to me, that's a blessing that we have a guy like Dak Prescott, who not only is a great, great football player, but he's a better man off the field, and leadership on the field, what they're doing right now in a weight room, and what he does with these guys is just hats off to him. We've just he's very unique in that way, and again, that's why we're so optimistic about what this football team can do.
But you don't plan on shifting that 20 million over there anytime soon.
We'll be working on Dak always. He's a work in progress.
Stephen, earlier you mentioned opportunities for offensive linemen to step up. When was the last time you entered a season with this many question marks on your offensive line?
We don't look at them as question marks as much as we do opportunities. These guys deserve a chance. I mean, they've been, in behind one of the better offensive lines in the league for the last 10, 12 years. So it's been very difficult to step up and take Tyron Smith's spot, Zach Martin's spot, Lyle Collins' spot. I mean, those are big challenges, and I just look at it as not question marks as much as I do, opportunities for some very skilled players that are not only did our scouts think a lot of when we drafted them, but what our coaches think of them now. So, like I said, I don't look at it as question marks. I look at it as it's going to be a great competition for guys to get an opportunity to step up and be the next great offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys.
Jerry, you opened this talking about the weather here and all that. Besides the weather, what's the best part or the main reason why you guys keep coming out here?
Well, I like to bring the Cowboys to California. I like the national aspect of it. Y'all write better articles. You tell me if I'll go to camp and we have a media party that you'll be sweeter to me in your comments. So a lot of that is at play here. But seriously, it's weather, but it's also tradition, and there's a tremendous amount of tradition. I've had the opportunity recently to be spending time with some of our most respected storytellers, not just in sports, but in all content for media. And as you know, with all of the different users of content today that you have, not just the networks, you have a lot of people doing documentaries and stories and things like that. It's in vogue. And so we've been, as our chairman on our committee, media committee, we've been looking at ways to align with those storytellers, the Glazers of the world, these people, the Howards of the world, and they talk about almost any meetings I've had with them. They've talked about some of the storied aspects of us being in California, and of how they'd had the opportunity to do this story, that story, and how young people now, as a matter of fact, in one group that I interviewed, one or two of the people in there had been to our camps as little boys. And they're at, when we were at Thousand Oaks. So anyway, to speed it up here, California is a great tradition for us. We've certainly got our 16 years here, 43 in all, out here in California. And it's just a great tradition. And we go out of our way to make it happen. As you know, we'd like to do and are doing a part of our camp back at the Star. And we like to do that. We want to do that. I miss San Antonio. That's very important that to me, that we give the credibility, not credibility, but the how big San Antonio is to the Dallas Cowboys. And I miss that. But this is very important for us to do. So you wrap all of that together, and this is a great place for this franchise to do training camp.
Jerry, speaking of tradition, there are probably about a half dozen players, give or take, from before you owned the team, who are Ring of Honor worthy. Where do you stand on looking at those guys and honoring them?
Brad, I've been waiting on you. You usually are the first through the door about these guys. And, of course, I get to hear from a lot of ex-Cowboy players relative to the Ring of Honor all the time, not just at a point in time. And so that the point that I'm getting to here is that with a lot of input, which I've always had, I'm carefully considering where we go from here as to when and how we do our induction. We've got some guys that certainly played well during the time that aren't in there during the time that I've been involved with the team. So those are easy, or easier, let's put it like that. And so it will, I don't do this at a specific time. And I do play the music a little bit as we get into the season. And I like really this ceremony when it's done, or recognition, not in any way to dismiss the importance of what the individual has done. But Tex Schramm gave me some real marching orders, and I mean serious marching orders. And he said, keep that number small And he said, don't you do it by committee. He said, you'll get up with the biggest mess on your hands you've ever seen. And said, just be your call and make it, particularly work to make it basically unformalized. Timing or when or who or how many. And I've got that. And that came from the guy that put the Ring of Honor up there. And ours is one of the best Ring of Honors and most successful I think I've seen or know about. So again, I'm giving you what's so that I can say I don't have a time or who for the Ring of Honor today.
Jerry, your first 5 years in the league, you guys were winning Super Bowls, you're playing in NFC Championship. The last 25, that secret sauce has left you. Do you know why? Can you figure out? Is it standard lowered? What's going on there?
Well, the secret sauce, the genie, whatever you want to call it. That's why we're here, to be trite. We're trying to find the secret sauce to get us another one. And it's about as, it's certainly the most challenging thing that I've ever been involved in. And have been involved in a lot of things, but putting it together so that we can get a team to win the Super Bowl has been real challenging, I admit it. And it's given me that much more resolve to get it done. But I don't know about the secret sauce. I've had a lot of sauce too. Hey, as a matter of fact, I've had several people recommend when you don't get in the Super Bowl, what you do is drink a lot.
This will be the last one.
CeeDee and Noah are your only wide receivers who have caught a regular season pass from Dak. Multiple of your newcomers missed meaningful time in the spring. Are you comfortable with that reality right now at wide receiver? If so, why are you comfortable with that, and how over the next several weeks can your comfort grow before week 1? Whomever.
Yeah, I'm extremely comfortable, and I think it really goes back to what we talked about earlier. There's always a jump that you have to have with every team that you put together. So there's always going to be a void of experience where your youth has to step up and contribute, and I have great confidence in that. I have a lot of experience at it. So, and I think when you see a leader such as Dak, it's because it's always the extra. It's the workout. So away from the off-season program, whether it's in Miami or at his home. So it's the details and the extra reps and so forth, because that's just the climate that we work in now. And I think our players are definitely of the right mindset. These guys spend a tremendous amount of time together, away from the facility, and that all those things are important. So the youth of our football team will factor early in our season, and it'll probably be at the wide receiver position. I think you have to anticipate that. That's the way we're training the team, and that's the formula that's going to be part of our success.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.